All right, strap yourselves in because today we're diving deep into a book that's guaranteed to get people talking.
Oh, yeah.
Esther Vilar's The Manipulated Man.
This one is,
You requested this deep dive, so we know you're ready to tackle some seriously challenging ideas about gender dynamics.
it's definitely a challenging one.
This book, it really throws a curveball by arguing that it's men, not women,
Yeah,
who are the truly exploited sex in modern society.
that's right. And Vilar, she doesn't hold back.
No, she doesn't.
Right from the get-go, she makes this really bold claim
Yeah.
that a man's primary function in society is to work, just to work and provide for women.
Work and provide.
She even compares men to children, quote, condemned to play the same game for the rest of their lives.
Stuck, right.
Yeah, stuck in those specialized professions.
Hmm.
What do you think about that comparison? I mean, it seems pretty harsh,
It does.
but is there like a grain of truth in there?
It's definitely a provocative way to start the book, that's for sure.
Wow, absolutely.
I think thinking about it, though, maybe she's tapping into that feeling of being trapped on a hamster wheel that some people, regardless of gender,
Yeah.
experience in their careers.
Yeah.
That kind of, is this all there is kind of feeling?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. It's like she's highlighting that societal expectation, right, for men to be the providers and how that can feel very limiting.
Providers, yeah.
And she uses a pretty vivid anecdote to illustrate this point.
Oh, yeah?
Remember the one about the man changing the woman's tire?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He just jumps right in to help, gets his clothes all dirty,
Oh, yeah.
potentially jeopardizing his own schedule. Meanwhile, the woman, she's just sitting passively in the car.
Right, exactly. And it's like,
Just watch it.
yeah. And she points out the irony, right,
Oh, yeah.
of the man's internal monologue in that moment.
What's he thinking?
He's thinking like, women, one's more stupid than the next, even though he's the one doing all the work.
It's so true.
It's like he's internalized this belief about women's incompetence, even as he's proving her wrong.
Exactly. And I think that internal monologue, it really gets to the core of her argument that
Oh.
women aren't just incompetent, they're deliberately cultivating this stupidity as a form of manipulation.
Wow. Okay.
Now, before you just write her off, let's hear her out for a sec.
Okay.
Consider her logic.
Okay.
She argues that intelligence, at least for women, leads to action
Okay.
and responsibility, things that she says women instinctively try to avoid.
So by playing dumb, they're shifting the burden onto men.
Precisely. Vilar suggests that this calculated stupidity, it creates an aura of mystery, an unpredictability
Ah, okay.
that keeps them hooked.
Oh, interesting.
They're constantly trying to decipher this female mind,
Right?
which, according to Vilar, is a myth because it's been purposely dulled down.
Okay.
She even creates like a dictionary in the book of women's phrases and their like true meanings.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, for example, when a woman says, "I need a man to make me feel secure,"
Okay.
Vilar translates that to, "He must keep his money worries to himself."
Wow, that is cynical.
It is.
But I mean, it does make you wonder about the subtext of our everyday conversations, doesn't it?
It really does.
I don't know, have you ever run into this kind of coded language in your relationships?
You know, it's funny you should ask that
That's-
because
yeah.
she has a whole bunch more of these decoded phrases.
Mm.
For example, "I must be able to look up to a man"
Okay.
really means he must be more intelligent, responsible, courageous, basically superior to me in every way.
Wow.
So, maybe she's onto something.
It's like she's suggesting that women are constantly sending these subtle messages, right?
Yeah.
To reinforce their dependence on men, all while elevating themselves to this position of power.
Mhm.
But wait, if men are the ones with the resources and making all the decisions, how does that make women the ones in control?
That's where things get really interesting. Vilar argues that women achieve this control through this mix of praise
Okay.
and self-abasement.
Praise and self-abasement.
Yeah, she believes women use praise as this really powerful conditioning tool,
Really?
training men to crave their approval.
Okay, so it's this constant need for validation that drives men to jump through all the hoops.
Exactly. Think of it like a Pavlovian response.
Okay.
Men become addicted to a woman's praise and will do anything to earn it. But here's the thing. She then flips the script
Yeah, okay.
and says that women also engage in self-abasement, pretending to be less intelligent or capable than they are.
That seems kind of counterintuitive.
Isn't it?
Why would a woman downplay her intelligence if she's trying to manipulate a man?
Well, Vilar believes it's a calculated move to inflate a man's ego, make him feel superior.
Ah, I see. Okay.
It reinforces this idea that he needs to be the strong one, the protector, the decision maker.
It's a fascinating theory. I mean, a little disturbing, but fascinating.
A little bit, yeah.
I'm already starting to see how her ideas, even if you don't fully buy into them, can make you re-examine, the dynamics of relationships.
Seriously.
It really makes you think.
Absolutely, and she doesn't stop there.
Oh, no.
Vilar then argues that even something as intimate as sex becomes a transactional currency
Whoa. Yeah.
in this power struggle.
Right. Now we're getting to the good stuff.
Right.
Let's dive into that next. So Vilar is saying that for women, sex is like a reward they use to, incentivize men to work and provide for them.
Right. She sees this whole exchange as men providing material goods and security in return for, access to women's bodies.
Access.
And it gets even more provocative.
Okay.
Vilar suggests that the perceived value of this reward actually increases with the cost of the woman.
So meaning the more, demanding or high maintenance a woman is,
Yeah.
the more valuable her sexual favors become.
Exactly.
That seems a little counterintuitive, though.
Yeah.
Wouldn't men be more attracted to women who are, easier to please?
Well, you'd think so.
Right.
But Vilar argues that men are drawn to the challenge,
The challenge.
the pursuit,
Okay.
She believes that men are wired to seek out the most expensive woman they can afford, leading them to offer the ultimate bid, marriage.
So marriage, in this context, becomes less about love
Yeah.
and more about securing exclusive access to this reward.
Yeah, it's a pretty cynical view of one of the most fundamental institutions in society, that's for sure.
It really is.
But Vilar certainly doesn't shy away from challenging those conventional ideas.
No, she doesn't.
And, she also kind of takes aim at the female libido,
Okay.
arguing that women are less driven by pure sexual desire and more concerned with using sex for practical gains, like securing that financial commitment from a man.
So she's essentially saying that women prioritize security and stability over pleasure or genuine connection.
Yeah, it paints a rather cold and calculating picture of female sexuality, doesn't it?
It really does. It does.
And it really reinforces her argument that men are being lured into this lifetime of servitude under the guise of romance.
It's interesting, though, because she doesn't seem to account for the fact that a lot of women genuinely enjoy sex.
Right.
And find it, fulfilling both physically and emotionally.
Right.
It's like she's overlooking a whole dimension of the female experience.
Yeah, that's a valid point. Her perspective definitely doesn't reflect, the full spectrum of female sexuality or the complexities of relationships, but she doesn't stop there.
Of course not.
Vilar also explores how religion fits into all of this,
Oh, okay.
arguing that women have become masters at exploiting religious institutions and beliefs to further manipulate men.
Okay, this is where I'm really curious to hear more.
Yeah.
How does religion, which often emphasizes morality and selflessness, become a tool of manipulation in her view?
Well, she points out that a lot of religions, especially those with Abrahamic roots, they really emphasize sexual sin and guilt.
Right.
Right.
And this plays right into her argument that men are constantly grappling with guilt about their natural desires, while women are somehow exempt.
So it's like a double standard that benefits women.
Yeah.
Men are burdened with guilt, making them more susceptible to manipulation, while women use this to their advantage.
That's the essence of her argument. And what's particularly interesting is that Vilar contends that many women are actually indifferent to the actual teachings of religion.
Really?
It's simply another tool, in their arsenal.
Another tool.
A way to control men's behavior.
It's a very cynical view of religion, I gotta say.
It is.
But it does raise some interesting questions about how religious beliefs can be used to reinforce power structures.
Sure.
What do you make of this argument? Does it resonate with you at all?
It's certainly thought-provoking. It makes you wonder about the unintended consequences of some religious teachings.
And how they might be used, consciously or unconsciously to maintain certain power dynamics.
Absolutely. And Vilar doesn't shy away from tackling another really controversial topic. Children.
Oh.
She goes so far as to suggest that children are essentially hostages
Hostages.
that women use to secure lifelong security and dependence from men.
That's right. She argues that having children is a calculated strategy to
Yeah.
guarantee a man's financial support, even
Right.
if his romantic feelings fade.
Wow.
It's like an insurance policy.
An insurance policy for the future.
For the future, yeah.
She breaks down the benefits of having one, two, or more children from a woman's perspective, right?
It does.
It's a pretty cold and calculated way to view parenthood.
It is. It is.
I mean, for instance, she suggests that an only child is undesirable because it doesn't make a woman seem, sufficiently helpless.
Right.
2 or 3 children, however, they perfectly cultivate that image
Yeah, the helpless damsel.
of a woman needing a man to provide and protect.
Right.
And perhaps most controversially, Vilar suggests that maternal love itself is often more about practical advantages than genuine affection.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to reconcile that view with the deeply emotional experience most people associate with motherhood.
It is. It is.
But let's shift gears a bit
Okay.
and explore what she has to say about the emancipated woman,
Okay.
the woman who breaks free from traditional roles to pursue a career.
Right?
You'd think Vilar would applaud this, but she doesn't.
You're right. She doesn't.
Yeah.
In fact, she argues that the emancipated woman is simply another more subtle form of manipulator.
How so?
How so?
It seems like that gaining financial independence through a career would actually empower women,
Yeah.
not make them more manipulative.
Right. Well, that's the surprising twist.
Okay.
Vilar contends that these women often strategically choose less demanding careers, with more flexibility,
Yes.
less responsibility.
So they're still working within the system, benefiting from the traditional expectations of men, even while appearing to break free from them.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. Vilar says these women still expect their husbands to shoulder the primary financial burden and responsibility.
It's like she's saying they're having their cake and eating it too.
Yeah.
They get the social status of a career without fully committing or sharing the financial load equally.
Right.
Do you think there's any truth to this? Or is she painting too simplistic a picture?
It's definitely a generalization.
Sure.
But she might be, tapping into a certain dynamic that can exist in some relationships. It's worth considering, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to think about.
But Vilar goes even further, suggesting that the women's liberation movement ultimately failed
Lies.
because it played right into the hands of these female manipulators.
So instead of leading to true equality, she's suggesting it just created a new set of rules that ultimately still benefited women at the expense of men.
That's her argument.
Okay.
It's certainly controversial.
It is.
But it does raise some interesting questions about the complexities of gender roles
Yeah.
and how they've, evolved over time.
It makes you wonder if we've really come as far as we think we have.
Right.
Are we still perhaps subconsciously playing out these same patterns in our relationships?
That's a good question to ponder, but before we get too lost in the big picture,
Yeah.
let's delve into one of the most fundamental elements of human connection, love.
Okay, this is what I'm really curious about.
Yeah.
Because so far, she hasn't exactly painted a rosy picture of relationships.
No, she hasn't.
So how does Vilar define this seemingly universal emotion?
Well, her definition of love is as cynical as you might expect. She argues that for women, love simply equals power.
Meaning it's about control, about securing resources and ensuring their own comfort.
Exactly.
Wow.
And for men,
Yeah.
Vilar equates love with enslavement.
Enslavement. That's a strong word.
It is.
What does she mean by that?
Well, she believes that men, blinded by their desire for love and connection, they willingly surrender to a woman's demands, sacrificing their own needs and desires to serve hers.
It's a pretty bleak view of love.
It is.
It's like she's saying that love, at least in the traditional sense, is this zero-sum game.
Yeah.
Where one side always wins at the expense of the other.
Right.
But what about things like genuine affection, intimacy, companionship?
Right.
Does she completely dismiss those aspects?
She does acknowledge that men often experience genuine affection for their wives and children. But she argues that these feelings are manipulated and exploited by women for their own gain.
So any authentic emotion a man feels is ultimately just another tool used against him in this this battle of the sexes.
That's essentially her perspective, and it reinforces her overall argument that men are fundamentally self-deceiving creatures, blinded by their desire for love, even when it's to their detriment.
If we follow Vilar's logic, where does this all lead?
Yeah.
What does she see as the ultimate outcome of this manipulation?
Well, she paints a rather bleak picture of the future, arguing that as men become more intelligent and productive,
Okay.
women will become even more lazy, stupid, and demanding.
So it's like a downward spiral.
Yeah.
The more men strive to please and provide, the worse things get for them.
That's right.
Well,
She envisions a world where men become increasingly isolated and alienated, sacrificing their dreams at the altar of female manipulation.
it's a pretty depressing outlook.
It is.
Does she offer any hope for men to break free from this cycle, or any suggestions for women to recognize their role in perpetuating it?
She does acknowledge that women hold the key to breaking this cycle,
Okay.
but she's not very optimistic about them choosing to do so.
Why not? I mean, wouldn't women, if they truly understood the damage they were causing, want to change things?
Well, that's where Vilar's deep cynicism really shines through.
Okay.
She argues that women are perfectly content with the status quo.
Hmm.
They have no incentive to change a system that benefits them so greatly.
So in her view, it's a self-perpetuating cycle of manipulation and exploitation with no end in sight.
That's the rather bleak conclusion she reaches.
Right.
She ends the book with this chilling statement.
Yeah.
Quote, "The world will go on, sinking deeper and deeper into this morass of kitsch, barbarism, and inanity called femininity. And man, that wonderful dreamer, will never awaken from his dream."
Wow, that's a pretty stark and unsettling ending.
Is it?
It's a lot to absorb.
Yeah.
And I imagine you're processing a lot right now.
I'm sure you are too, but it's important to remember that Vilar's book is deliberately provocative.
Right.
It's not intended to be like a guidebook for a relationship,
Right.
but rather a challenge to examine our assumptions about gender roles and power dynamics.
So it's about sparking critical thinking and prompting us to question what we take for granted, even if we don't ultimately agree with all of her conclusions.
Exactly. Love it or hate it, the manipulated man has made its mark on the cultural landscape.
It really has.
People are still discussing and debating its ideas, which is a testament to its power, even if that power lies more in provocation than persuasion.
Absolutely. It's a book that stays with you, even if it's just to make you more aware of the subtle ways these dynamics might be playing out in your own life.
Right.
So what are your thoughts so far? Do any of Vilar's arguments resonate with you? Or are you completely skeptical? We'd love to hear your reaction to this deep dive.
It's certainly been a wild ride through Vilar's perspective on gender dynamics.
It really has.
We've covered a lot of ground, from her, claims about women cultivating stupidity to her views on love and even the role of children as manipulation.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
It is.
I'm sure our listeners are grappling with a whole range of thoughts and reactions right now.
Yeah, I bet.
So let's maybe take a step back for a moment and try to synthesize all of this.
Okay.
What do you see as the most impactful takeaways from Vilar's work? What makes it resonate, even decades after it was first published?
I think one of the most striking aspects of her work is her audacity, to challenge conventional wisdom about gender roles and power dynamics.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with her conclusions or find them completely off base, the manipulated man forces us to confront, some uncomfortable truths about the ways men and women interact. It's like she's shining a light on the undercurrents of these relationships.
Yeah.
The unspoken expectations, the power plays that we might not even be aware of.
Right. It's definitely not a comfortable read.
No.
But it does get you thinking.
It does.
Do you think there's any value in engaging with her perspective, even if you ultimately reject her conclusions?
I think there's always value in questioning our assumptions, even those that seem self-evident.
Yeah.
While some might dismiss Vilar's work as, misogynistic or overly cynical,
Right.
I think it can serve as a catalyst for for deeper reflection and critical thinking. It pushes us to examine our own experiences, our own relationships, and to ask ourselves, is there any truth to this? Are these dynamics at play, even in subtle ways?
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not about blindly accepting everything she says,
Right.
but using her work as a springboard for a more nuanced understanding of the complexities of gender and relationships.
Absolutely.
Even if you vehemently disagree with her,
Yeah.
it's hard to ignore the impact this book has had on the cultural conversation.
Oh, for sure.
People are still talking about it, debating it, grappling with its ideas, which is a testament to its power.
Absolutely. And I think that power lies not necessarily in persuading people to adopt her viewpoint,
Hmm.
but in sparking a dialogue,
Yeah.
prompting us to question the status quo and the narratives we often take for granted about men and women.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's the one thing you'd like to leave our listeners with? What's the most important question they should consider after exploring Vilar's work?
I think the most crucial takeaway, regardless of whether you agree with the law or not, is the importance of awareness.
Awareness.
By understanding her perspective, even if you reject it, you gain a new lens
Hmm.
through which to view your own relationships and interactions.
Interesting.
So ask yourself, are there subtle power dynamics at play that you haven't noticed before?
Hmm.
Are you fulfilling certain roles or expectations that you haven't, consciously chosen? And most importantly, are you genuinely happy and fulfilled in your relationships? These are the kinds of questions that Vilar's work, even with its controversial nature,
Yeah.
can help us explore.
That's a great way to frame it. It's about um, gaining self-awareness and becoming a more conscious participant in our relationships rather than simply playing out roles that have been handed to us.
Exactly.
So we've reached the end of our deep dive into Esther Vilar's The Manipulated Man.
Wow.
It's been a wild ride, and we hope it sparks some serious reflection and maybe even a few healthy debates out there.
For sure.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonated with you? What challenged your assumptions? Did anything surprise you? Share your reactions with us, and let's keep the conversation going.
Yeah. Let us know.
Until next time, happy diving.